start with what we're discussing today. So today, we're going to be discussing the first module of 7411. It's all about three things. It's all about three main things. Number one thing is deploying servers.
Development.
Yeah,
Yeah.
deploying servers. And the technology that we're going to be discussing is WDS. And the number two thing that we're going to be discussing in this first section of 7411 is um, updating servers. And the technology we'll be discussing is WSOS. And then the last thing we'll be discussing is monitoring servers. And the technology that we'll be discussing, um, uh, task manager, resource monitor, perf mon, and
Reliability monitor.
yeah, that's right. Liability monitor, yeah. And then which other one?
Event
Event
viewer.
viewer, yeah, event viewer. Okay, so those are the ones that we're going to be discussing today. So this fun. So let's start with one of our well, it's not a trick question. It's a thinking question. So here's the question. You're a system admin because all these things we're doing in terms of MCSE training, it's supposed to prepare us to be something. For example, you do CCNA and CCMP, it's supposed to prepare us to be network administrators. So somebody who's done this certification and all that should be able to manage a network. So MCSE is preparing us, the MCSE certification is preparing us to be system administrators. So that means we can manage servers in an environment. We can deal with servers in an environment. So not mainly dealing with people, but mainly dealing, we can operate servers, we can manage servers, we can deploy them. We know how to manage them properly in an environment. So if I ask you, so this is the question I want to ask. So you're a system administrator in a company, and you've just been called. Someone just called you and someone says, hello, system admin. This system is not working. This system is down. Let's forget like the normal thing about are you sure it's down? How many people is it affecting? Let's say in truth, this thing is really, really down. This system is down. Nobody can get access to the server, to the service on this server. The system is really down. What's the very first thing that you do to find the problem as an administrator? What's the very first thing that you do? So, Stefan, so um, what's your thought regarding this? So there's no correct answer. I mean, I'll just give you like my own thoughts, and then you give your own thoughts and all that. So as a system administrator, one of your servers is really, really down. It's really not working. Nobody can access any service on it. And you're like, okay, many things could be the cause.
Yeah.
As a system
I would
admin, what's the first thing you do to get the cause?
um I would first of all reboot it and see if there is any error message. If it is, for instance, just if it just crashed and needs to be reinstalled or repaired or restored,
Yeah.
or even if it could load Windows, at least I can have an error message which can guide me through of the error.
Yep. Yeah. So you actually mentioned something which is close to what I was going to say. Okay. Reboot it, look for error messages. What about you, Marco? What's the first thing you do? System admin, your server is down, everyone is in a panic. You're trying to find what's the cause of this incident. What's the first thing that you do as system administrator? We'll ask Mark because Mark is resting, so Mark can try to log into the console and check network. Into which console is that? So uh, Marco says try to log into the console. But which console is that? So which console? It says on monitor. Okay. I see what you. So you basically try to log into the computer or into the server, and then you know check if there's like any issue. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I got it. So try to log into the server and then check for issues, right? So where will you check for issues? So what you said you check the network. So what exactly do you mean by the network? Is it the network connection or what? It says, yeah, I'll check network, event viewer. So actually you're right. You've brought up like the main point that because I thought about this, because it's one of the things that we deal with like where I currently work and all that. So if something like that goes wrong, as system admin, first thing I'll do is I'll have a look to determine what the problem is. I'll have a look at my monitoring system. That's the first thing I'll do. I'm not gonna now. You've mentioned it like in terms of like look for error messages. So that yeah. So you're right. I mean everything you've mentioned, they're right. Like you look for error messages, look for event viewer. But if you think about, you have an environment where you have multiple servers. You can be okay. Let's try to log into this server and try to look for event viewer. If you have a single monitoring console and if you've configured monitoring properly, it should be able to point you to what the problem is. If you've configured your monitor, so the first thing so that's the reason why I'm bringing this up is to show the importance of monitoring in your environment because we're talking about monitoring today. First thing I'll do is look at my monitoring system. Because normally, if I have set up a server, because many people do, many system admins do this. So they're like, oh, Stefan, we have a project for you. So this project involves our finance department. They have this new application that about 10 of them want to be using. So I want you to deploy the server for us. So Stefan goes in and gathers their requirements. So you speak um, to the supplier of the application. What's the minimum RAM requirement? What's the minimum hard drive requirement? So you add more to it for scalability. So you do all that. So now the server is ready. What's the operating system requirement? Does it need anything like .NET framework to be installed? The application requirement to install all that for them. But many people install all that and they're like, yep, done. I'm done. That's it. No, the moment you set that up, that's like the beginning of your work. There are many other things that you instantly have to start setting up. One of the first things you have to set up for that system is you have to set up monitoring. You have to, if you have a central, or if you don't, you should try to get it in your environment. There are a lot of free ones available. You have to have a central monitoring system that you set up monitoring for every server in your environment. So if you're like, this computer is down, and then you go to your monitoring system, it should be able to tell you, it's because the hard drive is filled up. So you can see from the monitoring system, the C drive is already 100%. Or you can see from the monitoring system, this is a network issue because packet loss is 100%. You can see from the monitoring system that this is a service issue because right on the monitoring system, it tells you this service just stopped. So if you've configured monitoring properly, it will make your life easier because if anybody calls you and is like something is wrong, you can go to your monitoring system and within a few minutes you can know exactly what the problem is, provided you have configured it correctly. Provided that you've configured your monitor, so you should configure your monitoring in a way that that if anything fails, you can pick that up from your monitoring system and you can be able to basically anything that can fail, you can pick that up from your monitoring system. If you're like, oh, I'm concerned about this one may fail, you can pick that up from your monitoring system, and that's really really important. And in terms of like one other thing, and I know this is not part of MCSE, but this is part of like the real world. There are lots of things that when it comes to monitoring in your environment, there's like there's like a framework for it. I mean, have you ever heard of this thing called FPCAS before? FPCAS. Anyone? Have you ever heard of FPCAS before?
No.
No. So FPCAS, it's a really popular framework for monitoring. So it is one of the things that as a system admin, you're thinking of when you just whenever you set up any server, they give you a project to set up a server, you're thinking of this. You must set up monitoring for these five aspects. So F means fault. So in other words, you're monitoring for fault. In other words, if an hard drive fails, a network card fails, um, a memory disk, sorry, a RAM disk fails on your computer. So you're monitoring for fault. So you're monitoring fault on your server. If something is faulty, you can pick it up from your monitoring system. Next thing you're monitoring is you're monitoring for performance. So you're monitoring things like maybe response time. So you're like, okay, hold on. Uh, response time used to be 0.02 milliseconds. All of a sudden, somebody's like, nobody can get to the server, and then you get there, and response time now is like 50 seconds. You're like, oh, okay, I know exactly where the problem is. So now you know what's like the main. So those are the kind of things that you have to determine. I like frameworks a lot. Like in IT, like many people complain about frameworks, but I like frameworks a lot because what frameworks do is that you don't necessarily have to follow everything line by line, but they give you a guideline. So that guideline that they give you, you can use that and fit that into your environment. So I can take this framework and say, what aspect of my system, of my new server, do I want to monitor the performance? you know Maybe my network. I'm like, okay, um maybe someone complains that um um some, maybe it's responding slowly or something like that. I want to monitor what's the utilization of the network card. you know is it being heavily utilized, that someone is doing something and it's using like maybe 80% of the bandwidth of the network card? I want to monitor it from that perspective. So I'm monitoring the performance of that. If it's like something that involves a lot of disk read and write, I want to monitor the disk queue length. To find out, is there like people hammering the disk that now it's got a long queue of things that it wants to write to the disk, but the disk read and write head can't spin fast enough to write it. So got a long queue. So I want to monitor things like that from performance. Next thing you want to monitor is your configuration. So that if anything changes, you can know. So it's not necessarily that you have all this, you get it. Maybe you just built your server, you determine, okay, the only thing I actually need to monitor is just default. I don't really need performance and configuration monitoring for this server. So you can decide that, but this is like just a framework of things to monitor. The next one, what's A? I think A is accounting, which will be something like your event viewer where you're accounting for who has done what. So you're monitoring for that. No, no problems, Marco. Yeah, you're monitoring for that. And the last one is your security. I'll give you an example of like security monitoring that we have in our current environment, where I think I've mentioned that before. We're using PowerShell. So if someone so Stefan adds someone into the domain admin group. We've configured using PowerShell. It sends an email out to every system admin that somebody has just been added into the domain admin group.
Hmm.
So that's a way to monitor for security. So in case an hacker gets access to your system, one of the things that an hacker will try to do is to create an account that has high privileges so they can do whatever they want to do with that account. So now we have all those groups that we've mentioned. These are high privilege groups. If anybody adds any member to this group, an email goes out to every single sysadmin to say, this person has just been added to this group. And so you want to monitor for all these five things and stuff like that. So the whole point is like the importance of monitoring in our environment. If you go on Google, let's go on Google and let's see FP. Let's see if we can find that. Well, not that much. Fault. Let's go fault. performance, configuration. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Sorry, it's not FPCAS, it's FC apps. Well, yeah, whatever. Yeah, yeah. So when you're monitoring for faults, you're monitoring for configuration, you're monitoring for performance. No, that's not that. No, syslog, not this one. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So where you're monitoring for faults, you're monitoring for configuration, you're monitoring for accounting, you're monitoring for performance, you're monitoring for security. So it's just one thing to note whenever you're setting up your monitoring. And one of the reasons why I said that is also because one of the things that we'll be learning today in terms of like monitoring from Microsoft perspective today is not actually something that many people use in the real world. You won't actually see many people that really will be using um, um, you know, Pathman to set up data collectors. That's like old archaic way, you know. But the thing is, something good can still come out of it because you can learn the foundation. Because what many people will have in their environment. Oh, okay. Mark just muted me.
David, you're muted.
Yeah. Yeah. It says Mark muted you. so when the ball is right, when your environment, you have something like there's lots of them. There's like even the free ones, like the Nagios, which can be difficult to configure, or the Zabbix, lots of them. And then you have like the easier to configure but very expensive ones like SolarWinds and lots of them like that. So those are kind of things that you use in your environment rather than be using um, something like rather than be using something like what's it called? Something like performance data collector sets and reporting and all that from Performance. Okay, so WDS.
But David, just a
Carry on.
question
Yeah,
regarding this aspect.
yeah.
Does it cause a severe impact on the network? The fact of like retrieving data at a X defined point of time.
It does, but there's no other way um, to have an effective management of your systems. There's no other way. It does,
Mm,
but there's no other way. So that plan has to be built as part of the network. As a system admin,
okay.
like, won't be like, I get to be like, for example, the role I'm doing now has to do with network. Yeah, so has to do with a lot of networking. So lots of guys, like it depends on the way the company works. But your network guy, one of the requirement is they have to build enough bandwidth for this within the network because there's no other way for you to be effective. As a system admin, you have a right to say to your network guys that, see, this is my server. I'm responsible for this server. I'm not responsible for the network. You know,
Mm.
I don't really care that much about the network, but I'm responsible for this server, and I need this information from this server. I need to be able to get this information from this server at this time and stuff like that. Yeah. So
Is there like a way around to do it? I mean, maybe using two different network, but at a specific point of time, getting data from servers on the other network,
yeah, like
just
like
to not to sacrifice bandwidth.
yeah, it feels like in terms of like I get the point you're talking about. For example, like when I first got to like the company I'm currently working, one of the first things that I had to look at was to deal with monitoring of the MPLS systems and all that. And one of the issues was that uh, a lot of Windows guys at that time are switched on lot of, especially for Exchange, they switched on lots of monitoring,
Yeah.
way more than they needed, and it was using a lot of the network. So it depends. So it has to depend on a lot of things, like what importance is this server to the business. So
Mm.
it still has to come to that. So they're like, okay, you want me to build this server? What's the importance? You want me to build this server for this finance department? What's the importance of this server to the business? Like, yeah, if this server is the one that we're going to be using for our new payroll, if this server should go down at month end, nobody gets paid, including the CEO. They're like, okay, network guys, this server we we have to pull it every 2 seconds for information so that if it goes down within the next 2 seconds, I want to know. Because and then they're like, okay, this other server that we want you to build for us, yeah, it's going to be used by facilities. They use it for their cleaning management. Yeah, yeah. We're like, okay, we can set the polling frequency and say poll this server, polling frequency, and say poll this server every 1 hour. In other words, yeah, check in the next 1 hour, check again, are you still alive? So check the performance. Is your performance okay? In the next 1 hour, check is the performance okay? But then if it's a system that's of high impact, so it's like one of the things like again, like I said, remember like what we said at the beginning, that these are the kind of things you do more about in the real world. What
Mhm.
many of the things we're studying, what it will do is that it will give a lot of foundation that you can use. Like you can learn a lot of frameworks that you can use, you can use in discussions with your colleagues and all that. But when it comes to like the real world, like is this kind of thing that will matter? Like what's the business important? So basically you have to have your servers. Or if I'm asked to set up a server, I was asked to set up one for the warehouse management system recently. Yeah. So basically, if that fails, our company can ship anything out because they use that for the shipping to manage their shipping with DHL and all that. But only two people use it in the warehouse. Only the guys in the warehouse. Only three people use it in the warehouse. But it's important in terms of like customer. It affects the customer. So we basically asked our manager. Or I asked my manager, what do you consider to be important? It's your decision. It's not my decision. You decide. What is because one business may say, well, we can afford to lose our email system, but we can't afford to lose this other system. Maybe, who knows? Maybe the kind of business that they do. But another business can say, okay, for us, we can't afford to lose this one. So it's the manager's decision to decide what's important to the business. So all I need to do is as a system admin is that, okay, we have systems or servers that are of high importance to the system. We will probably be our priority one servers. Maybe like our mail servers, our exchange servers. It may even not be like maybe something as even as wild range as like I said. It may be just 10 people using it in finance, but it's sort of high impact that if it fails, nobody can order anything within the business, you know, and the facilities guy can order anything they want to order. So they may rate that as higher priority. So the high priority one, you can set like, okay, the threshold for this, it will pull them every 4 seconds for data, and we have to be able to gather this data from them. You set all those data that you are interested in as a system admin and all that. So they call them interesting data. So we like when we there's a lot of data you can get, but we're only interested in a few. So these are the interesting data that I'm interested in and all that. Okay, so let's go after all this discussion we've had. Let's go and see how much we can cover today. WDS, Windows Deployment Service, is all about deploying servers. So again, as a system admin, Stefan, do you think you really use WDS to deploy servers in your environment?
Nope.
What about you?
No, no,
Why?
definitely
What's the
not.
reason? What's your reason? What's your justification? Why not?
Well, I tried it. I mounted something previously for a lab, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the aim was to deploy client OS,
yeah,
and I mean for a training room. I did
yeah,
it.
yeah.
4 PCs. It took me almost 1.5 hour or almost 2 hours to get
Yeah,
the image deployed on 4 PCs only. So it's dead slow, and
yeah.
it's taking a lot of config you need to do before arriving to the result. So I said, okay, we won't go for it. We know we have the technology, but we won't go for it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. What about you, Marco? Marco, you said no. You said you won't use WDS. So why won't you use WDS? Is there any reason? So I do agree with you that no, that I won't use WDS. So Stefan mentioned a good point that it does take it takes a long time, or it could, let me put it this way, it could take a long time to deploy. Um, would you use to deploy servers in the real world? Stefan says it could take a long time to deploy. So what about you, Marco? What's your own justification for saying no? What's your justification for saying no? I won't use this to deploy. Maybe for deploying, yeah, for for deploying client OS. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with what Stefan has said, and I agree with what you've said in terms of it can be good for deploying like clients in your environment, but I won't use it for servers. But why won't you use it for servers? I can tell you my own reason why I won't use it for servers. It's because in the old days when WDS it says you do not install good one, very good one. So um WDS is something that is built, yeah, so WDS is something that is built for high volume deployment. In other words, you have loads of systems that you want to deploy all at once. But if you think about it, for maybe every server in your environment, you have maybe 100 clients. So you don't really have high volume. Nobody, I've not really seen any admin that comes. Usually you get a project where you deploy like maybe one server, maybe then you have like maybe you could deploy like maybe five of them. Maybe if you have like a you work in a global company where you like, maybe you have to deploy one per region and then make them highly available or something like that. So, but you hardly get the chance to deploy 50 servers at once in a room and you're building everything at once. But you could do that with clients. And not only that, client, you're constantly re-imaging this one and re-imaging that one, and then the user comes and the user is like, well, this one is not working yet, so we have the solution. Let's just re-image it, and you'll be okay. And this user comes and this user says, I have a problem. Well, let's just re-image your computer and you'll be okay. So WDS is mainly built for high volume deployment. You're deploying something massively and frequently. But servers, you don't really deploy them. Yeah, good. Another good point, Marco. For maybe for VDI deployment. So something that is high volume, not something that you only deploy once in a while. As system admin, you only get project like once in a while to deploy servers. Get a project to say we want these two new servers that we want to deploy and all that, and then you have to find the requirement and all that. So that's one good reason. So WDS is for high volume deployment. So good for client OS deployment. I'll tell you my own third reason. My own third reason will be because virtualization has changed the landscape of IT. So, yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's another good. But then the other thing is like the one you're studying, Marco. You're studying for System Center Virtual Machine Manager. Now,
Mm.
like what Stefan said, WDS could take a while to deploy a server. But think about the kind of technology we have with virtualization these days. Now, these days, majority of servers are virtual. Like with VMware, I know you have something called templates where you can just right click and go clone this template, and within a few, literally, seconds, you have a brand new server that's available to you with SQL already installed. You know the kind of things, Marco, that you can do with System Center Virtual Machine Manager, where you can have different templates based on system different need. So you can have a template for a system that is 2012 with web server installed, and it's a template. And 2012 how to with web server installed, and this one is 2012 with SQL 2012 installed, and you have all these templates. Exactly, system center. So you have system center virtual machine manager, which gives you something much better, and you have VMware and vCenter that gives you something much better to deploy your servers. That you can basically, and that's what many people use like modern days. You won't actually be using WDS to deploy virtual servers. You just go clone your template and boom, you're done. Just clone it, sysprep it, you're all done. Actually, some technologies will actually do the sysprep for you. VMware will do the sysprep for you. I'm sure. I've not used that before, but Marco will probably tell us that System Center can also do the whole sysprep for you, and within a few minutes, everything is ready. In fact, there's one. So depending on how rich the company is, there's another one that we use in our environment, um, that we integrated it with VMware. So I can go to a page. So it's called Embotics, I think. VMware Embotics. Um, the Embotics, yeah, Embotics VMware. So that's what we use in the environment. So we have this deployed with our internal VMware infrastructure that I can go to a web page and go, I want this server 2012. I want it to have SQL on it. I want it to have 8 gig of RAM. I want it to have this space. I want it to be on this network. I want it to have this backup template, maybe backup weekly or backup daily or something like that, and I click send, and it sends an email to the virtualization guy, who receives the email, looks through it, and goes, David, you're crazy, reject, or goes, yeah, that's okay, accept, and he clicks accept, and it doesn't do anything. And after 5 minutes, it sent an email to him and sent an email to me and says, your server is now ready. Now, you get things like that. So why would you want to use this one to deploy your servers in your in your environment? So that's why. So virtualization has changed this. So that's like my own other reason for this. Virtualization has changed this. Okay. So, but still, it's still something that's useful in terms of client deployment, and that's one of the first things that we'll probably let's get started with that one today. Let's go server one. Um, yep, server. So let's go. So the first thing we'll do is let's install WDS. And what we want to do is we want to deploy a client. And let me ask a quick question in terms of WDS. Let's bring up another print. But let's start the servers first. Start Lon DC1. Start. Yep, those two are enough for now. So let's start those two. Actually, on this one, let me move it back because I might have worked on it. And then let's start it again. Okay. We have DC1, and then we have server one. Yeah, okay. So we're gonna deploy one in the short time that we have. So we'll probably make it one of our projects and stuff like that. Okay. So can anyone explain like the whole WDS process from start to finish? So WDS process, you have your computer on your network, you plug in your computer. What's the first thing that happens? What's the second thing that happens? What's the third thing that happens? What's the fourth thing that happens? What's the fifth thing that happens? So WDS process. Okay, so who wants to go first? Marco or Stefan? First thing that happens,
Alright.
your computer is on the network, you
Okay.
switch it on.
Yep.
Yeah, so after that,
Um, well, first of all, the PC needs to be booted through PXE.
yeah,
So you need to change it in the BIOS first.
yeah,
And once it's in PXE mode, it
yeah,
looks for a DHCP server.
yeah, looks for,
So
let's see, PC looks for a DHCP server. Yeah.
yeah. So once it gets its address from the DHCP server, it also receives information about the WDS server.
So you've mentioned something here. So it looks for a DHCP server and
Yep.
it also receives information about a WDS server. So how does it receive information about a WDS server? How?
So when you are going to create the DHCP server, it depends. If you create it on the same WDS server,
Yep,
there are some settings that change.
yep,
If I recall, you need to block port 67,
yep,
I think.
yep,
And if not, if let's say the DHCP is found on the domain controller itself,
yep,
you need to configure something about port 60
yep.
so that the client can receive the information about the WDS
So
server to
again,
use.
yeah. So now so we said how does it receive um, information about the WDS server. Said if WDS and Pixie are on the same server, you said it's going to
Yeah,
use you said port 67 or is it port that you mentioned?
yeah.
It will use port
No,
67.
sorry, it's port 60. It's port 60. If it's not, uh, you should block the port 67. If it is, it's through the port 60 that you need to configure.
Ah, oh, I get what you mean. You meant option 60, right?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Option 60. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay. No, no problems, Marco. No problems. Yeah. Option 60. Yeah. Then what else?
Um, Option 60. Then you need to authorize the DHCP server.
Mm,
Of course, create a scope beforehand.
mm-hmm.
And and all other stuff like DNS and router on the DHCP.
Let's go with this one. If I go computer computer. Okay, so you mentioned something important, which is really, really important in terms of if WDS and DHCP are on the same server, it behaves differently. If
Mm.
what if WDS and DHCP are on different servers? How will the client know about the WDS server?
Mm.
How will the
Because
client?
because um, the thing is, DHCP operates on port 67,
Yeah,
and I think it has got something to do with WDS. If they are both found on the same server,
yeah,
it will cause like a kind of conflict somewhere.
yeah,
And that's why these functioning are required. But I did not really get it clear why, in fact, it should be causing conflict.
yeah. Okay. But okay, so that is if they are on the same server. But what if they are on different server? What if they're on different servers? And let's go for HP server. Excuse me. What if they're on different servers? Ah, good one.
It goes,
Let's just use this one. It's better. Let's go. Yeah, Stefan, I'm listening. So what if they're on different
yeah.
servers? What happens?
Well, my guess it will be the DHCP, which will be, let's say, primary to be able to redirect the client to the WDS server to start the pulling down of the image, I guess.
No, not exactly. Not exactly. And this is where we'll find out. We'll find out about that now. So this is where we'll find out. So first thing we'll do is that let's install WDS first. So my thinking is the way we're going, we'll probably not get past WDS today, but at least we'll get that right, we'll get that properly. Did I copy image? I just want to copy the image. Um, oh no. I'm just looking for a server, please. Just any server, okay, let's just go for this one. I hope you're not as big, you're not really huge also. Copy image. Come on. No. They're all just looking like small systems. They're all just looking like small pictures. They're all really huge pictures. You're gonna be I won't I won't trust all of you again. Okay, let's just go images again. Let me just copy it from here.
And unfortunately, it fits WDS technology.
Yeah, with this, let's copy this one now. Okay, so now let's go. Yay, we have multiple servers now. So, yeah, so we have this server that we just deployed. We have this other server that we just deployed also. So let's say this one is DHCP on it has DHCP on it, it has AD on it, it has DNS on it, because those are the prerequisites for WDS. And
Mhm.
let's say this one is we just have WDS server installed on this one, and then um, we have a nice little Cisco switch that's connecting everyone together, and everyone is talking to one another. So copy, and then yeah, here we go. So now our infrastructure is complete. We have a Cisco switch, WDS server, we have client one, we have client two. So the DHCP server is connected to this one. This guy is connected to this one. This guy is connected to this one. And this guy is connected to this one. So this guy boots up. So once he boots up, what's the first thing that you said he will do? You said he will send a DHCP
Request.
request, which is a broadcast, right?
Mm.
So everybody on the network will receive it. So this guy will receive it and will look at the packet and go, sorry, I'm not a DHCP server. Drop. This guy will go, what will this guy do once he receives this packet for DHCP request?
It sends a DHCP offer,
Yep, sent
and
a
if
DHCP
client
offer.
accepts,
But where this one will be listening on which port for DHCP?
67.
Yep, UDP 67. What about this one? Is it listening to any port?
You mean for WDS?
Yes.
Nope. If it's separate, nope.
Actually, it's listening on UDP
Oh,
67.
okay.
So it's actually listening on UDP 67. So that's why if you install both on the same server, you have to block this one and
Mm,
say don't listen on port 67, because it's gonna listen on port 67. So you have to say, hey, don't listen. There's a DHCP server installed on you. Because what will happen is
mm.
this guy will go, hey, DHCP port, UDP port 67, any DHCP server out there, I need, IP configuration. We'll send like this list of requests, and this guy gets it, and this guy replies and says, okay, the DORA process, discover, and they're like, yeah, I have an offer for you. This is an offer for an IP address. Yeah. This guy also gets
Okay.
it, and it also replies.
Mm.
So once this one gets it, it's like, oh, somebody somebody has sent something to UDP port 67. Well, I'll reply. But you know what the reply will be like? If you open the packet, which I'm not sure if you have time to do this today, but well, if we open, so what I did was I had Wireshark also running, where I captured all the packets. So because I was reading on a blog, so I captured all the packets. So if you actually capture all the packets, you'll see two responses. You see a response from this one and you see a response from this one. The response from this one will look like this. The response from this one will be like, this is an offer, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
offer will be like, I'm offering you IP address 10.1.1.1 and default gateway 10.1.1.2, so and so, subnet mask, you know, 255, 255, 255, something, 255, 255, 255, 0. That's what it will look like. When this one replies, this is what the reply will look like. It's like, yeah, um, I'm going to offer you IP. Actually, I'm going to offer you IP equals to nothing. So
Okay.
it replies with an offer, but the offer is empty.
Mm,
The only
okay.
thing that the offer will contain are the options that you mentioned. So it will contain option 60. It will contain option 67, which will tell this one option option 60. Let me try to remember. Option 67 is the one that's telling the boot file name. So it's like this is the boot file name that you're using. So it will be like something like you're gonna go into the remote install folder, something like that, and you're gonna boot this file called wdsmp.com. So that's what that's gonna be like. And this one, I think will reply. I'm not sure what this one actually, because I opened the package yesterday and I've forgotten. Does it? Because I don't think it contained the WD. I think maybe the WDS server. Yeah. Yeah, I'll need to look that up. So I'll put a star next to this one. But it will reply with these options. So it will also reply, but the IP that it will reply to will say, I'm not offering you any IP, but this is what I'm offering you. So this guy will receive an IP from the DHCP server and will receive the rest of the options for the WDS server and where to pixie boot from from this other guy. Do you get it? So if they are both sitting on the same server, okay, so let's go. So let's try to demonstrate this one properly. So let's delete. Let's not delete this lovely server. Let's leave this lovely server alone. Let's delete this guy. So let's say this server here is WDS. This one, let's say this one is just AD and maybe DNS. This one is WDS and this one is also DHCP. Now there are two scenarios. If you have DHCP installed on the server first, which in most likely you already do, because part of the prerequisite for WDS is DHCP. But if you have DHCP installed first, and then you install WDS on the same server, what WDS will do is it will automatically configure option 60, I think 66 and 67 on DHCP. It will automatically do it. You won't need to do it as an administrator. It does that automatically by itself. If WDS detects the server I'm being installed on also has a DHCP server. So it will configure all those options by itself. You don't need to do anything. If WDS is already installed, and then for some reason you now decide to install DHCP, well, that's a different problem. Because now you have to manually configure those settings by yourself.
Okay.
And you have to manually configure the option 60, option 67, option 66. So you have to manually configure those options by yourself. And here's the reason, because WDS is listening on UDP. And not only that, you have to manually go into WDS and say, don't listen on the port that DHCP is listening to. Don't listen on those ports. I don't want you to listen on those ports because the DHCP server is already listening on those ports. So what will happen is that, again, this computer goes and it will send um, a discover, right? So this guy gets it, but this guy is listening on port 67, UDP port 67. So this guy just goes, okay, I'll respond to you. So I'll respond to you with an offer of an IP address, but also respond to you with all the other ones like option 60, option 66, option 67, so that you know where to boot from the WDS server. So it will also have all those. But there's a disadvantage to that. Actually, Microsoft doesn't recommend this. Because you see, in the other situation where DHCP is sitting down here, where DHCP is sitting down on itself here, and WDS is sitting down on itself here, when this machine goes and sends this one to DHCP and DHCP replies to an IP, and it goes and sends this one to WDS, WDS can actually negotiate with this client and say, okay, you are x86 architecture, so the best boot file will be this one. Oh, you're actually Itanium architecture, so the best boot file will be this one. So this one is what I will send to you. But if you use DHCP, you can only configure one option. So actually, in Microsoft's documentation, Microsoft will recommend it's not advisable to use this option where you have both of them sitting together on the same server. It's advisable to split them. But then back to the other thing. Okay, so let's actually see that. So Stefan, we'll give you some leeway here. So first thing that I want you to do is to set up WDS on server one for us, so that we can see all the things that we've talked about. Yeah, okay. Let me go.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, no offense. Yeah, okay. So carry on. So let's set up WDS. So it's something that's straightforward, but as we go, we want to bring up some points. Mhm.
Okay, it should finish.
Okay. So let's yeah. So yeah. So we have WDS
This
already installed.
language.
What?
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So we
I
have
thought I saw
WDS.
something about returns. Yeah.
So he brought up two things. He said he was talking about. So if you go next, so he brought up two things. He says now we have two. We have role
Yeah.
services. We have deployment server. We
I
have
was
transport
looking for
server.
this.
So what's the two? What does the two? What do they do? What's the difference between the two? What's their purpose?
The transport server, it's using a mechanism called the multicasting engine.
Yeah, good
And
one.
for
Very good one. Yeah,
and for the transport server, you can as well have the PowerShell commandlets to manage WDS.
yeah, very good one.
Whereas the deployment, it's used for deploying the image for responding to Pixie boots,
Yeah,
and
good one.
I think the third one is um, managing clients or something like that
Yeah,
through the WDS.
yeah,
It's
very,
all
very good
related
one.
to the process of pulling the image to the client.
Yeah, very, very good one. Excellent, excellent. So you're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct in that. So those are the two purposes. So that, the other one is just a multicast engine. It's mainly for setting up multicast transmissions. Why the other one does things like the WDS client that the PC will use. It has something that manages the images for image management. Uses something for TF, it has TFTP. It's also the
Yes.
Pixie server and all that stuff. Yeah. Oh, good one. So, yeah, the other thing, I've got a question also. Like I asked this question yesterday. So, WDS, after we install it and then when we start configuring, it's going to ask us to set up two images, the boot image and then the install image,
Hmm.
and then the install image. So it's not something like I said, it may not be something that, but it's something that knowing them just helps us like a bit more understanding. And the good thing is that the knowledge is applicable in other places. Like when people in the real world, if people are using things like SCCM, the same knowledge is applicable because you understand like what a boot image is, what it does, and all that stuff. And yeah. So boot image. So why do we have to have two images? Why can't we just have the install image and just have the install
It's
image do what it does?
um the boot image is in fact well, I would be tempted to say something like the Windows PE,
Yeah,
where the client knows which OS it should pick, and then follows the install image, where it's just going to pull down the real OS to be installed on the PC.
yeah,
So my point here is that the boot image is just something like starting up the process,
yeah,
where the client will need to pull down something,
yeah.
and this something equals to the install image that is being pulled by the process.
Yeah, good, very, very good point. Very, very good point. The other thing that I would just add to that is that so that's a really, really good and valid point. Is that the boot image, when the boot image, so again, let's use this one. So again, so this guy goes, And then this guy goes talk to this one, loads the WDS MBP mp.com file, tells it with boot image to load. So then he's like, okay, I'll use TFTP to transfer that boot image to myself. So where will it transfer it to on this computer?
It's on the hard disk
It's on the RAM,
itself.
on the RAM. So the boot image is transferred directly from here straight to the RAM. Because
Okay.
again, remember, there's no operating system that is being loaded on the hard drive. We're assuming it's an empty hard drive. So it goes, it loads the boot P, like you said, loads it directly into the RAM and runs it directly from the RAM. And that's one of the reasons, that's well, that's not, but that's one of the reasons why it's not feasible to use your install image because that's like about 4 gig. This one is just 200, about 200 meg. So yeah, I mean, if you want to load about four about 4 gig to RAM, you must have a really powerful laptop. Yeah, so it loads just about 200 meg to RAM, so that like you said, it can now use that to now download the install image, not to the RAM but to the hard drive. So it loads
Okay.
this one directly to RAM to like run an operating system for the computer to load. So when the computer now loads into the operating system that it's already downloaded to its RAM, it now transfers the WDS client that this one has, transfers the WS client to itself, and that WDS client will now establish a session with WDS server. So it's a client server relationship, and it's now going to say this install image that I want. This is the install image that I want, and then it's now going to start copying that install image to this guy's hard drive where it's going to run it from. Now, in previous version, before 2012, it will copy all the image to the hard drive before it starts running them. But in 2012, how to, it once it starts copying, once it starts getting to the hard drive, it starts to run it that way.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay, yeah. So let's see if we've got that one ready now. So one, yeah, here we go. So now it's installed. So what's the first thing we do after it's installed?
Configure DHCP, maybe.
And DHCP. So
I
DHCP
mean,
is already configured on the other server.
yeah.
Yeah. So DHCP is already configured. So now WDS is installed. We need to configure WDS itself.
Okay. Maybe we could start by opening the console.
Yeah, good one.
Looking for admin. Oops.
Actually, you can run it from Server Manager also. So under Tools.
Oh, okay.
In Server Manager, under Tools at the top.
Yeah.
Then WDS should be there. Yeah, sorry, it's really small. Yeah. So WD, yeah. So there we go. So now we have WDS. So now if you, yeah. So if you try to configure it, because we want to bring something out there. Yeah. So now it says because if you click on that on the server itself, it's going to tell you, yeah, I'm not configured. So you need to configure it first. Yeah. Okay. So here are two options. So it says you can either integrate WDS with Active Directory or you can
Mhm.
have it as a stand. If you don't integrate with Active Directory, you don't need Active Directory is not a prerequisite. But if you want to integrate it with Active Directory, of course, Active Directory is a prerequisite. But what's the main difference between integrated with Active Directory and standalone? What's like the whole purpose or the main thing?
Can I say if I integrate it within the Active Directory, this requires a domain, so clients within the network will know that they should be using this WDS server. So for me, being integrated within AD means it should be in a domain, and
Yeah.
the other one, the standalone, means it can be deployed throughout a workgroup.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that's a good answer. That's a good valid answer. The other thing I'll add to that though is if you think about it, WDS is all about automating deployment. You want to have deployment to be automated.
Hmm.
And in the process of automating your deployment, you can push it as far as you want. So you can say, okay, I'm going to automate deployment. I'm also going to automatically join it to the domain. So if you want
Okay.
to push it that far, it definitely needs to be integrated with Active Directory.
Hmm.
You can say, I don't only want to automatically put you in the domain, I want to automatically put you in this OU so that you get this group policy once you log in. So for you to do that, it has to
Okay.
be integrated with Active Directory. So you can do that with WDS, where you can say, well, this computer that you're building, I want you to join it directly to the domain, put it in this OU in the domain, and of course, you've already linked your group policy to that OU. So the first time a user logs in, they get all the group policies that you want them to get. So that's one of the benefits of integrating it with Active Directory that standalone can give us. So yeah, we can go on.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I go through the standalone, right?
yeah. No, for the integrated with Active Directory because we have AD already. Yeah, and then the part that is going to install all its images, the pixie boot files. Yeah, yeah. It's only complaining. It's like it's not advisable to use the system volume to store your images. Yeah, so this one is another good one. So here is like Pixie server initial settings. Do you want me to respond to any client computer, known computers, or respond to all client computers, known and unknown computer? I remember when I first saw this, the first question that came to my mind was this. Now, when WDS, the computer is supposed to have nothing on it. How in the
Yeah.
world will WDS know a computer or unknown computer? It's not as if the computer is already in your Active Directory, you know? So a computer that is a brand new computer that that just comes on. How in the world? What do you mean by you know them? You don't know you don't know this one. You know this one. What does that mean? So to your understanding, what do you think it means? Like known computers or known computers?
It could be it could be something regarding the pre-staging of computer accounts
Yeah,
within AD.
yeah, good one.
So for WDS, the known
Mm.
computers will be those ones which have been already pre-staged in AD,
But if you think
and the
about it,
unknown ones.
yeah, if you think about it though, if you pre-stage them in AD, what information do you use that WDS will use to know them? Because, for example, if I go to AD and create a computer object, there's really nothing, there's really nothing because there's nothing about the original hardware that I'm building.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what
yeah.
information does WDS use when you're doing the pre-staging to know the computer?
The GUID,
Good
maybe?
one. Exactly, exactly accurate. For example, we have a server here that we're going to be building this server 3 here. So if I switch it on, so there's three information that I could use. Um, so yeah, you have MAC address. So you can either put in the MAC address, you can put in the GUID. In other words, when it sees this UID come to request an image, it knows it because you've already entered it before. Or if you put in this MAC address, when it sees this network card comes to request an image, it already knows it because you've entered it before. The other one it can use is something called DUID, DHCP Unique ID. So which is
Okay.
another one that, yeah. Now that one I only learned about it when I was reading the book. I have absolutely no idea what it means, what it does. They call it DUID. So I was like, what in the world is DUID? DHCP unique ID. Okay. I mean, like I've never heard of it before. I'm probably not interested in knowing too much at the moment. But yeah, so those are the three informations you can use you can input to WDS and then WDS can know the computer based on that. So uh, oh, mhm. You know what I think it's happened? It got stuck.
Oh,
Because when you click inside um
yeah.
the window, where you click inside the window, it captures the mouse.
Oops.
So let's go. Let me go Control Alt Delete. Uh, Start Task Manager. Yeah, okay. So let me go. Yeah, turn off. Okay, so yeah, we can carry on with that. Yeah. So we can
Okay, so
say
it's
respond to all computers, known and unknown computers.
okay.
Yeah.
Let's let's look up. Okay, we haven't checked.
Then it goes ahead and configures WDS. Then once WDS is configured, let me add our Windows DVD so that we can use that to add query. Um, let's go for C drive, program files, Microsoft Learning 2411 drives. Yep, there we go. Apply. Okay. Yep. Okay. So now it says, do we want to add images to the server? No. So we can click finish then, and then yeah. So now we've installed WDS and we've configured it, and everything is ready. So WDS is actually very simple and straightforward. Of course, there's much more that we can do to it, and then more we'll cover here. But it's really simple and straightforward. So you need two main images. You need the boot image, like you mentioned, is the WinPE image. It loads that into RAM. So then and that one can establish a WDS connection with the WDS server using WDS client and then downloads the install image to the hard drive where it installs it. Um, then, okay, so now we need to add the boot image and we need to add the install image. So, yep,
Okay. But just a question, David.
yeah.
Can we do it? Uh, I mean, can you install? Is it depending on something? You need to install the boot first, then the install image second, or you can just do the way around. I mean, the install first and then the boot afterwards.
So it won't, yeah, with this one. So actually, I've never ever tried that before. So it's probably worth trying. I think it doesn't. I'm not sure. Like, I will reckon that it shouldn't matter. So actually, let's try installing the install
The
first.
way around?
Yeah, let's try
Okay.
putting the install first. Let's see if it's going to allow us to do that. So we're in a lab. We can play around with it.
Maybe I should create a group first.
Yeah, good one. Good one.
I
So,
will call it client OS.
yep, yep,
And in this one, I'm just going to add bits. Okay. Oh, file location. Default boot install.
yep. So, yeah.
Okay.
So there are um three. So for boot images, we can use the WIM file, Windows Image Format files, the ones that come with our Windows DVDs or ISOs. Which other things can we use for boot images?
VHD
Yeah, good one. Which other? What
and
about?
VHDX.
Yeah. What about install images? What can we use?
Not know.
Yeah. So it's the same thing actually. It's the same thing. So you
Yeah.
can use WIM files, VHD, and VHDX. Now the thing with that is in previous version on than 2012 or 2012 out to I think 2012 out to it will only allow you to use VHD as boot images. It won't allow you to use VHD as install images. But
Mm,
2012 out to allows you to use VHD as install image.
okay.
And yeah, so apart from boot image, you can use it as install image. Yeah, so let's just select the standard or the core or anyone.
A core one.
Yeah, the core one will be good
Okay.
since we're just gonna be using
Uh,
it to practice.
standard. Okay, let's take this one. I was trying to do that before the session.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was stuck in my lab,
yeah.
and my WDS server refused to get connected to get joined to the domain.
Ah,
No, I realized what I did wrong. In fact, I built up a server,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
A Windows 12,
yeah.
and I copied the VHD,
Yeah.
use it as the VDS server.
Ah,
And why
yeah,
connect to the domain? It's not going through because it's getting the same GUID,
yeah, yeah.
and the first one has already been used as the domain
Domain
controller.
controller, yeah, yeah,
So I need to recreate another one
yeah.
just
Or
in
you can
time, like
just,
less
yeah,
than
you
two
can just
minutes.
sysprep it. You can just,
Okay.
yeah, you can sysprep it. Um, on the C drive.
Hmm.
So under the C drive system 32, you see a sysprep folder. So if this
Okay.
one comes up, if it doesn't come up, let's go under the DC because we need the DC shortly too. Um, come on, come on. Yeah. So what sysprep will do is that it will remove every unique information from the drive, and then it will come back as if you just installed it. So C Windows System 32, and you find a folder in System 32 called sysprep. So if you double click on sysprep, it will give you two options. So we won't actually run it now, but it will
Mm,
give you two options. So one of the options will be, um, yeah, so you can see this option. So you can select the option System Cleanup option. So it says
okay.
enter system out of box experience OOB. In other words, it's going to take away all the unique information like computer name or anything that you've entered and return the computer to like an out of box experience as if I just install Windows. It's going to start asking you again and start asking you what's the computer name. So it's going to take away every unique information. Generalize. So if you install it as OOB with the generalized option, it will take away the security identifier, the GUID, anything unique. Take that away, and then when it comes back up, it will be like a brand new computer that you just installed with a new GUID, seed. You can give it a new name and all that stuff. So that's what you run. So that's the same way that we can use WDS actually, because this works with WDS. So like what we can do with WDS, we can have a server or well, we've said we won't really use it for server in the real world, but you can have a client in the real world. So you install Microsoft Office on it, install any other application that you can need on it. So after you've done that, um, you use sysprep to generalize the image. So it takes away every unique information. And then once you do that, then you capture that image to WDS. So now that image, you can deploy it out, as an image. So once you deploy it out, so when it's installed, instead of it just installing and then you have just Server 2012, it will install and already have Office on it, already have all the updates on it. You get the point. So yeah. So you first of all install so they call it like a reference computer. So you have a reference computer that you've installed all the applications that you need, installed all the updates that you need, then sysprep it. After you sysprep it, then all that will happen is that um, you can capture that image and then deploy it on your machine so they all have all the updates and everything installed.
But does it compress it when it just gets spread?
No, it just takes away all unique information. That's all. That's the only thing it does. So it's the same thing that virtualization technologies use. Virtualization technologies, like if you clone a server in VMware or Microsoft Hyper-V, yeah, you don't just go ahead and start using it in your environment. Like you said, it's going to have the same GUID and all that. So you have to first thing you do is you have to sysprep it first. So many of them actually will have sysprep inbuilt into them. So when you clone it, it actually does the sysprep for you automatically and all that. Yeah, so now we have our install images. So now, yeah, if you go ahead and add the boot image, then we can have a boot image.
Image list. Okay.
When you're doing that, let me see if I can find
List 64 treasure.
WDS Wireshark capture those deployment service. Yeah, so now we've got it's installed that one. Yeah, good one. So now, if you right click on the server and go to the properties of the server, let's see some of the options there. So if you go under the DHCP tab, so let's look at that because we mentioned that during our discussion. So now, if you have DHCP running on this machine, again, remember that this is if you have installed DHCP after you've installed WDS. So if you install WDS when you've already installed DHCP, it will actually tick these options for you and configure DHCP for you automatically. But if you've done that, it says if DHCP is running on this server, check both of the following checkboxes and use DHCP tools to add appropriate PXE options to all DHCP and DHCP v6 scopes. So because again, remember, it listens also on UDP port 67 and it also responds on port 67. So that's the reason why you have to say don't listen on port 67 because DHCP is already on this server and it's listening, and you can't have two services listening on the same port on one
Mm.
single server. So it says do not listen on this on DHCP port. Configure DHCP options to indicate that this is also a PG server. So you have to select these two options.
Okay.
Yeah. So the other one is yeah, client. These ones are really straightforward. So you can if you have like multiple like part we said that we can use WDS for automated deployment. So we have something called the Windows Automated Installation Kit, something like that. So it comes with things like Windows System Image Services or something like that, WSIM, Windows System Image Manager, that you can use to create an unattended file.
Okay.
So an unattended file, which won't go into today. So it's unattended file is a file that will contain things like the language. So you know all the questions that Windows asks you when it's installing, like which language do you want, which keyboard do you want. You can configure them inside that unattended file, and then it just automatically installs. And without you having to go, I want English language, it just uses the unattended file to answer all those questions. And the
But
deployment, yeah,
how,
come in.
how do I add the unattended file in the image?
So you won't actually add it in the you actually add it in the image. Just have to have it on this computer. So and
Mm.
here you can go enable unattended installation. So you won't actually add it to the image. So if you already have one here, you can double click and say this is the unattended file I want to use for this architecture. This is the unattended file I want to use for this architecture. If it's 64 bits, this is the unattended file I want to use. If it's ARM, this is the unattended file I want to use.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, we can also create an unattended file from here. We'll see if we can get to do that. Pixie boot policy. So this is also like really straightforward, like that. So the other one, ADDS. So remember we said if you integrate with Active Directory, you can actually automatically join the computer to the domain. So now it's saying you can even automatically give it the name.
Okay.
So like this naming, they're like standard naming conventions. But let me just quickly talk you through them. They're really simple. Like you can see this one's got percent 61 username percent then hash sign. Think about this way. If I go, so they are really standard. If I go percent first, so that means use the user's first name as the name of the computer. If I
Okay.
go percent 5 first, it means use the first 5 characters of the user's first name. You get it? So if I go percent last, it means use the
The
user's
last
last
name of the
name
user.
as the computer name. If I go percent 7 last, it means use the first 7 characters of the user's last name as the computer name. So what do you think percent 61 username means?
Mm, maybe the username can consist of 61 characters,
Yeah,
not
so it
more.
means use the first 61 characters of
Mhm.
the username. That's all that one means. So this one is also a standard by itself, like percent hash. So hash sign means if you just use the hash sign, so that means a digit. So if I go
Mhm.
Um, percent hash, so it just means you go in a digit. I mean, that's just a digit, like maybe percent one or percent two. If I go percent two and at sign, so that means go in increment of two. Sorry, not go in increment of two. It means, so percent this one means start from one and start counting. So just digits. So it goes, so maybe computer one, computer two. So this one can be username one, two, and start counting. If I put two, so two places a limit and say you can only go up to a maximum of two digits. So maximum of two digits is 99 because once you get into 100, you go into three digits. So that means start from one and keep incrementing till you get to 99.
Okay.
So if I go percent three hash means hash, the hash means increment. The three means you can only increment up to a maximum of three digits. So that means you can only get to a maximum of 999. Because once you get to 1000, that's four digits. So it will start from one and go all the way to 999.
But a question, David.
Yeah,
Let's say, okay, I've got five PCs, right, on
yeah,
the network.
yeah,
I'm using WDS to deploy VOS,
yeah,
and at a specific point of time,
yeah,
there will be one who will just, like pulling down the image first,
yeah,
followed by not necessarily the second one,
mhm,
but maybe the fourth one has been more rapid
yeah,
and has taken the image faster,
yeah.
and then the third one take over. How how does the WDS server knows that this is, let's say, PC1,
Mhm.
PC2, PC3, and so on?
Yeah, I know that's really simple. It's all TCP communications, right?
Hmm.
It's all TCP communication because all those computers have IP addresses. Remember, that's the first thing that they get. So they all have their own individual IP addresses. So the WDS knows which computer is communicating to with the IP address. So when the computer boots up, the
Hmm.
first thing that DHCP will give to them is an IP address.
Hmm.
So which is unique on the local area network. But then the other question that I was even thinking that I was thinking of is this. So let's say you have WDS here. Now we said we can use something called multicast transmission. So what multicast transmission means is this. WDS takes this image and sends it to the router.
Hmm.
Yeah, or let's say, yeah, maybe to the switch or to the router. So the router or the switch gets it, and the router and the switch goes. So WDS is not going, oh, I'll send the image to you, then I'll send the same image to you, then I'll send the other packet of the image to you, and I'll send the other packet of the image to you. So WDS is now dealing directly with the network device because there are prerequisites to use multicast transmission. And one of the prerequisites to using multicast transmission is your network device must support multicast transmission. Any switch or router that you're using must support multicast and you must enable the multicast feature on them because multicast is a network feature. So that's the first prerequisite for using multicast transmission. Network device must support it and you must enable it. And have it enabled. The second prerequisite, well, not prerequisite, but it's something that helps. It's something called you must configure IGMP, Internet Group Management Protocol, on your network devices. And here's the difference between that. Let's see what the difference is.
No, but why the ping should be enabled? What's the role of the IGMP in fact?
Yeah, so that yeah, so we'll see the role of IGMP. So we go this one. So this guy is now using multicast transmission. Now the transmission is going directly to the network device, not the computer. It goes directly to this network device. And this network device, its job is now to say, hey, all the computers that are connected to me, which one of you are interested in this transmission? So this one is like, hey, I'm interested. This one is like, hey, I'm interested. So it is now this job to split, make copies of that packet and send one to this one to this one. But now you've saved the bandwidth between this one and this one. So this one only sends one to this one. And it's like, I'm only sending one to you. So this one's job, your network device job, that's why it must support multicast. Its job is now to say, which one of you need it? This one is like, oh, is it transmission for 224001? He said, yeah. Oh, I need it. This one is like, yeah, I also need that transmission. So it makes copies of it, sends to this one, sends to this one. But here's the thing, IGMP is how your network device determines which computer is interested in that traffic. So it is the one that chooses to put them in a group, internet group message protocol, or what's it called? I forgot. Internet group message. Sorry, we'll check it now. So that's why it uses it. So because it uses that to put them in a group. You say, hey, I have this group here. If you're interested, let me know. So this guy's like, I'm interested. So he's like, yeah, I'll add you to this group. This is like, I'm interested. Yeah, I'll add you to this group. But if you don't have IGMP enabled, even though you have multicast function enabled on this network device, multicast will basically function like podcast. So this one will still send just one packet here, but when this one gets it, there's no way for it to determine which devices that are connected to me are really interested in this communication. There's no way to determine that. So it will just do what? Send it to every device that is connected to it. So I'll send it to you, I'll send it to you. So now, although you've saved this bandwidth, but now it's still sending unnecessary process, using unnecessary processing power. So
Mm-hmm.
here, if I go, so I actually Googled, yeah, I have IGMP open here. So here we go. So this IGMP said the Internet Group Management Protocol is a communication protocol used by hosts and adjacent routers on IP network to establish multicast group membership. So in other words, I have this packet that this computer sends to me, and it's like it's let me know it's a multicast, which means many of you could be interested in it. So if you're interested in me, let me know so I can put you into this group membership. So I know that device A on port A on me has requested for this transmission, so I'll send it to here. Device 27 on my port 27 has requested for it, so I'll send it to that device. But if IGMP is not there, there's no way for it to know, so it will just send it to everyone. So that's the reason why IGMP will make your multicast more effective. So it's like that way. So it's like, yeah. So it's like, hey,
Okay.
yeah, carry on.
Um, well, when I tried WDS the first time, it was on server 2008
Yeah.
R2. And could this explain the fact that on 2008 R2 it was dead slow? Because I haven't noticed anything about multicast throughout the WDS console.
Yeah.
Could this be a reason why it's dead slow with with server 2008 R2?
So that one is a trouble. It's a whole lot of troubleshooting issue because a lot of things could be wrong. It could be the network, the transmission itself. Maybe the network is highly utilized or something like that. So it could be that.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah, excuse me. Or it could. It could be a lot of things. Or
Okay.
because there's a way. Because even after you've added your images, you must specifically set up a multicast transmission. So you still have
Okay.
to specifically set up a multicast transmission for an image. Otherwise, the image will still go unicast.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah. So there could be a lot of reasons for that. But if you look at this one, it says a switch will by default flood multicast traffic to all the ports in the broadcast domain.
Hmm.
So without high GMP, the switch will just treat it like a broadcast. It's like there's no way for me to know the specific devices that are really, really interested in this one. So I'll just send it to all of you. But if I have IGMP, I can use that to communicate with you so you can all subscribe to this group member. And then I know, oh, port 27 are subscribed to this group, port 15 are subscribed to this group, and port 30 are subscribed to this group. So those are the only ones I'm sending it to. So that's the prerequisite for high GMP and for multicast transmission. And then back to the one we're talking about. So if we go back to server one, so actually one of the other things that we have to set up is something here called the multicast transmission.
Hmm.
So we have to set that up for our install image or for the image that we want. So if you go ahead and set that up, it's really straightforward to set up, like I said. And go create multicast transmission and then just give it the name, and the name will be good.
I would say by number of.
Mhm. And then we can select
Okay,
just the image, one image that we want.
I will take this one.
Yep. And then yeah, we have like this thing about autocast and scheduled cast. So autocast, what autocast simply means is that once a client comes to request it, so again, back to our diagram here, once this client comes on and this client is like, oh, I'm interested in this install image, he sent it to this guy, and then this guy sends it to him, and then he sends it to this guy, and then this guy sends it to him. So it doesn't wait. So once there's a request, it starts transmitting. So if this guy now comes and says, "Oh, I'm also interested in it," it's like, "Oh, there's already a transmission going on." So join that transmission, and this one will just keep getting it. So after, so again, remember it has already transferred some to this one before this one subscribed to that transmission. So this one will just hold on. It won't start installing anything. It will just start storing them to his own hard drive. Why this one is also taking it, this one is also taking it. So after it finishes transferring to this one, all the other ones that he has already transferred to this one, he will now transfer them again to this guy. You get it? So that this guy, so that's like autocast. Scheduled cast is where you can say, um, don't start the transmission until this number of PCs as requested. So if this PC comes and says, I need it, it's like, hold on, you need to be 10 before I can start. If this PC comes and says, hold on, you need to be 10 before I start. So once they become 10 PCs, like, yeah, I'll start the transmission now. Or the other thing that you can use, you can say transmit at a particular time. So it's like, oh, I'm waiting for 7 a.m. in the morning. So this guy is like, I need is like, hold on, 7 a.m. in the morning, I'll start. If you set both options, um, any one of the option that is first, that is met first, is what will work. So if you set 10 PCs and 7 a.m. in the morning, so if 10 PCs comes first, it will start transmitting. If 7 a.m. in the morning comes first, it will start transmitting. So
Okay.
yeah, so that's for this one. So yeah, so
Let me
if
check.
you don't select any one of this one, if you select scheduled cast and you don't select any one of this one, you have to manually start it before it will start.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's
So
select autocast for now so that it will start transmitting immediately. Yep. And then finish. Yep. Now, so we've done. Now we have a transmission for that image. So we can set up for all the other images that we want. So now a transmission is for that image. Now it's waiting. It's like I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting, I'm waiting for someone to come and request this image from me. Now, the other thing that we need to do is that if you're going to really integrate it with Active Directory, you can do this one here called the pre-staging, like you mentioned. You can add a device. So let's say we had a device, we say test. So device ID is the one that we talked about, the MAC address, the GUID, or the DUID. So if I go, let me see if I can get, let me try to get the MAC address of this guy right here, because it's the one that we'll use. Yeah, there we go. Legacy network adapter. Um, oh, oh, can I just copy it? Is there a way? 00155D. Let's move it to the side here. Okay. So 00155D 012F12 and then go next. Yeah. And then we can go and say okay, referral server. um so okay, I have actually I like don't have like that much idea of what this referral server stands for. But you can specify like because now you've specified the computer which is like a known computer now. You can say boot image.
Mhm.
You can say this is the boot image that I want you to use for this computer. If you have multiple boot images, yeah, you can specify an unattended file and you can create one here.
Okay.
So an unattended file. So for example, I can go this one setup language. So like all these things about which language do you want to install, which keyboard do you want to install. You get the point. So I can select.
Oh, so this part, this Windows, is where I can create the unattended file.
Yeah,
I don't.
you can create one here, but you still need to edit it properly.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
The Windows automated installation kit is still like a proper way to create unattended files because it gives you like a whole um, big functionality of and makes it I mean it's really full featured in terms of like the unattended file. You can be as specific as possible. But you
Okay.
can also create one here, you're right. Yeah. So it says specify the logon credentials to use for Windows deployment services. So when WDS boots up, WDS will ask for a logon credential. Remember when we said when you're mentioning the computer name, you can say percent first or percent last. I was thinking to myself,
Mhm.
but it's a computer. How come it's going to be using a username as a computer name? So when WDS is boot is when after it's loaded the build image and then when it wants to start the transfer of the install image, it's going to ask you to enter a username or password. So whatever username or password that you enter at that point is what it will use for that percent first or percent last to name the computer. So that's what it will use. So
Gotcha.
actually you can delegate permissions to your users, making them to be able to create computers in OU. And then what will happen is you can have something like maybe Stefan01 and have a naming convention like that. So if you want, we can specify a name and stuff like that. And then if we click, and then we specify the disk we want you to install it to, and then it will actually create an unattended file for us. And click save. And then that's the location of the unattended file.
Okay. WDS client.
Yeah.
But okay, okay.
And then we can go next, and then configure one domain user's right to join this computer to the domain. So if you specify just an ordinary user here, um, but you want this computer to be joined to the domain automatically, you need to you need to give the user permission to join the computer to the domain, delegated permission. So you have to configure the user to be able to join the computer to the domain. And join the domain when so you, then you select this option, join the domain when this computer is deployed, and then you click
Un-
finished.
Unless I use, let's say, for instance, the IT admin account,
Yeah,
which
exactly.
has
We've
got, let's
already
say,
yeah, we already has permission. But I'll just delete this one. Um, so with this one, so the other thing is you want it to join the the domain automatically. There's another prerequisite that you have to watch out for. And this one is really important because otherwise it can be confusing when you're like, but I've used an admin account. How come, the computer is not, you know, joined to the domain and creating, the thing, I mean, creating the computer account in the domain and all that? Because the WDS server, you must give it delegated permissions to the OU that you want it to create computer accounts. Because basically, WDS will be the one to create the computer account in that OU. The user account will join it to the domain, but WDS will be the one to create, there's no computer account object. WDS has to create it. So you have to go into your Active Directory users and computer and say, I'm delegating permissions. So if I go on the AD users and computers, so I'm watching to here because we'll finish shortly because of time. But we only get to discuss WDS, but that's normal. At least we get the benefit of knowing more about WDS. So if I go, if maybe just select an OU, I have to go delegate control and delegate control to my WDS server and go add object type and go computer and then go add my computer. Hmm, it's long SVR1. Yeah, and then go next. So I don't want to give it like this common task. I want to create a custom task. And basically, I don't want it to be able to create account object. I only want it to be able to create computer objects. And I don't want it to be able to delete. So if an hacker takes control of my WDS server, they won't be deleting my domain controller object and all that. Because principle of security, I will try to grant list permissions. So I only want you to be able to create only computer object. I don't want you to be able to create account object, only computer object. Create, you can't delete, and then click next. And then say I give you full control permissions to do to create computer objects in that OU. So that's the only permission I'm giving you. And yeah. So now I think we're set. I think we did. So we have a boot image, we have a client, we have a install image, we have a multicast transmission which is ready to, let's see, yeah, we have a multicast transmission which is ready. We have a server configured to respond to known or unknown computers. We can even specify a delay if we want to say maybe give it a delay of 2 seconds before you respond to them so that I don't have to quickly press F12 once the computer boot up.
mm,
And
mhm,
everything is, yeah. So, and I think everything is ready and we can go ahead. So this, if we use multicast, this is the address that it's going to be communicating. These are the address range that it's going to be using for the communication. Um, yeah. And then, okay, so I think we're done. So then if we go to boot our computer up and then let's see what happens. Um, server 3, power on. Let's see what happens to server 3. So, yeah, it gets an IP
mm,
F12.
okay.
So you see this file. Yep, there we go. You
Yeah.
see, it's really simple and straightforward. Really, really simple and straightforward. Just make sure you had your boot image or install image, have your multicast transmission, set your
Mhm,
PXE server to respond. You know, if you want it to be only known computers, make sure you pre-stage them first, the way we did, and then go ahead and start them. So, I mean, if you get like something to work on for like a small to medium sized company who don't have the money for
mhm,
SCCM, this is a good solution for them for their client deployment. If they have like maybe about 10, 15, 20 computers they want to deploy at once, really good solutions for them.
mm.
Cheap, not expensive, and everything like that. So good
At the
one.
end of the day,
Yeah.
my mind regarding WDS, I thought it was really a burden when you're going to configure it and the output regarding the time it takes to deploy. But I changed my mind because I was not aware there were so many features regarding WDS in Server 2012.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's actually really, really like you can even go as far like you said you can use the unattended files to even make it very very light touch. That is no user required on the other hand to be clicking next next next.
Mhm,
So that's a really good one. You can even play with that in your lab. It's really simple. Although the feature set of SCCM is obviously way much more
mhm,
because definitely you pay how much, but you know how much you have to pay for SCCM. So not everybody can afford SCCM. So for a small to medium sized company, this is a good solution for them. I mean, I remember one of the first companies that I worked in when I first started working everything. If I've known about this could have saved us a lot of work then when we're using ghost images and doing all this kind of stuff. We could have just used WDS to be deploying all the clients we were deploying then than what we were doing then. But I didn't really know that much about it. I thought it was complicated and confusing, but it's not complicated and confusing at all. It's really straightforward.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has really improved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's where we'll stop today. So we didn't even get to to um to W source and monitoring. But
Mm.
I'm planning and because monitoring, I love monitoring a lot. I love so I'm planning one of our special hangouts. I want us to do more PowerShell hangout. Then I'm planning one for Active Directory backup and I'm actually
Okay.
working on it at the moment, Active Directory backup, because many people are confused about that. Because many people know Active Directory backup is complicated, but they don't know how to make it simple or straightforward. Because they know, oh, Active Directory, you can't restore computer objects beyond a certain point, because if you do, then you start getting things like um, trust relationship is broken, and you know it's really there's a lot of complex things to watch out for. But then there's a way to simplify it and all that. So I was planning one on that and one especially on monitoring because I like monitoring a lot. There's even an RFC on monitoring that I was
Okay.
studying. I was studying. There's a whole RFC. There's a whole framework to monitoring. Monitoring is like it's like something because it's really really I really think that it's something that's really really can make your life simple in IT. And there's no the contract I say I'm doing. One of the things that even though they don't have like the money to be buying like things like solar winds and everything, I'll still put Spice Works on the computer for them because it will make your life easier as an administrator to be able to for them to say, oh, we are getting problems on this server, and then for you to be able to go to a system that can tell you instantly this is what is wrong with this server. If you've configured it correctly, that's what monitoring will do for you. If something goes wrong, you should be able, as a system admin, to go straight to your monitoring system, and it should. If you ever go to your monitoring system and something is wrong, and you go to your monitoring system and it didn't tell you that something is wrong, and users had to come and tell you, then you need to tweak your monitoring. You need to
Mm,
adjust it so that next time you need to find a way to configure your monitoring system so that next time when that issue happens, you can pick it up.
mm.
So that's the way monitoring
Yeah,
should work. It can make your life easy that if anything goes wrong in your environment, instead of running, where do I start from? You're like, hold on, bring up the monitoring system. Let's see. What's the hard drive saying? What's the network saying? What's that one saying? What's the other one saying? What's that service saying? Oh, that service is down. Okay, yeah, that's the problem. So that's what monitoring can do. So I like it very much, and I think it's really really important on all that stuff.
yeah. To move the next thing out,
Ye-
David,
Yeah,
can you as well something regarding monitoring of switches and routers? My aim is just to keep an eye on traffic on our switches
yeah,
and know as well when the lines goes down regarding my routers. I mean, a lot of time I have several issues. We use McAfee at work, and
yeah.
McAfee is somehow really complicated sometimes,
Uh-huh.
and I don't get it. I don't master it at all.
Yeah,
And at the end of the day, when the line goes down, I know that McAfee just switches on the backup line.
yeah,
I just need to do a speed test,
yeah,
and I identify both IPs, which will be used to know which line is just taking over, which line is active, and which one is not active.
yeah,
But it's not straightforward with McAfee.
yeah,
I can't manage my devices.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I know, like for example, if one that is free, Spiceworks is free, but it doesn't do that much. It does more of like system monitoring, not really network monitoring. The ones that are free that do network monitoring can be complicated to set up. Like the ones I've seen, like Nagios is complicated to set up because many of them are built on open source technology. And when you're talking about open source, talking about something completely different of outside of our realm as Windows admin, you're talking about Linux and all these Unix and
Mm,
Linux guys and all that stuff. So they can be really complicated to. So I'm still looking for like a really really good open source network monitoring solution